Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to the podcast. My name is Ijama. I am your host. Thank you for joining me for another episode. And this week, I am so happy to leave the US and have another international seller on the podcast. My guest this week is Anastasia. She runs the Etsy shop Shawl Pins by Lirimaer. And Anastasia, thank you so much for being my guest and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. And Anastasia is based in Russia, and this is the first time I have a Russian guest on. So I'm so thrilled because I'm going to start making a pin and putting countries of, the different places where I've talked to people. So I'm glad to have you as my guest.
I'm very glad to be the first.
Now, before we start, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so my name is Anastasia and I'm 32. I'm into jewelry making and now it's hairpins mostly. And I have been doing it for like 7 years. It all started when my first child was born, virtually like in a couple of months after my daughter was born. I thought that I cannot be like a stay-at-home mom, taking care of my child only. I need some space, like both mental and physical for myself, some space for growth. So I picked up jewelry, but at that time it was polymer clay. And I actually enjoyed the process of forming, molding and stuff, but then I noticed one little thing, that what I want to make out of the piece of polymer clay, it should not look like polymer. I was like trying to find a way how to avoid it. Then I discovered wire wrapping on Flickr. Yes, and I fell in love virtually, and I forgot all about polymer clay, and it was a bit like I bought everything I needed, like all the stuff, materials, and tools.
Yeah.
And then, like the next month, I stopped. And that was I still do not regret, because for 7 years I'm in love with what I do, and I'm hoping to be busy with it more and more till I get something else, maybe.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I like is that the designs that you have are very whimsical, and they look like they're from fairy tales, or even like I don't know how to describe it, like from like enchanted forest types of stories.
Yes.
Do you come up with these ideas yourself? Like, do you just envision it and then you make it?
Oh, it's a bit complicated process, because of course I find lots of inspiration like around, and I usually start, and then the material gives me some prompts. Of course I have some idea like how it should function in the beginning. Like if I make a hair fork, I know that it has to have 2 prongs.
Right.
What comes up in the upper part, which is the decorative part, and which is actually what makes the whole piece, it usually arrives in the process. And I do not make sketches like at all, except for the most simple pieces, like what is in my shop and what looks minimal. Actually, it is free thought. And what is more whimsical, it's like what it appeared to be in the process.
Wow.
Because for me, making complicated pieces is like a bit more meditative process. It's I add here and there, like I can move in any direction, and if I don't like, I can hide it, or maybe even vice versa, show up. But with minimal pieces, it's a bit not difficult. It's vice versa. I have to think before, because like any twist might might turn it into something absolutely different. I take different approaches to various pieces. Yeah.
Wow, so interesting. And one of the things I really like about your story is you started out with the polymer clay, then you switched, and one of the things that you said you loved was crocheted scarves and knitted scarves and shawls, but then you found out that you weren't good at making them, and now you make this accessory that is complementary to that, which I think is brilliant for somebody who's trying to figure out what their niche is, and there's something they think that they like, but they're not necessarily good at it.
Yeah, it's actually some of my pains, I can say, because when I tried to knit or crochet, it was like nothing more than a scarf, but even that scarf wouldn't be even enough, or I don't know, it would be clumsy.
Yeah.
But still, I love such pieces, and chunky or maybe translucent, like any type. And when I discovered that actually I can make something to complete this piece, it was a great discovery for me.
Yeah.
And still, I think like making shawl pin out of one piece, like the one without a stick that is separate, I think it's my most beloved type of work, because it's almost always intuitional, and I'm mostly relaxed when I create those designs. It's not like some hard brainstorming for what to put where. I'm enjoying that process thoroughly.
And I think that gives a clue for somebody who is listening now that is struggling trying to find what that perfect product is to sell. It's like Anastasia just said, it's not a struggle for her to make the shawl pins and the hair pins. It's very relaxing for her. And I feel like sometimes, because we're chasing after the money, we try and do something that might not necessarily be what's our strength or forte, just because we're trying to make the money. Whereas if you really just go with creatively where your bent is, where you're led, it might end up being more successful than trying to make something work that just isn't. Now, Anastasia, when you originally opened your Etsy shop, what was your intent? From the get-go, did you always want it to become your source of full-time income, or just side income, or is it just more of a hobby that makes money, and has that changed?
Well, I think it actually has changed, but you always, when you start something, or at least I always think of two plans. One, it won't work, and the second one, it can work.
Okay.
And if it doesn't work, then you just close this project, and if it works, you work further and think what other venues open. And back in 2011, when I opened that, it was one of the sources of income, of course. But actually, I have to admit that now it's almost the only source of income for me. Like, I do not sell here in Russia at all. I think it's once a year or maybe once in half a year that I actually sell something here. And that's usually something sold to a friend or acquaintance. So I do not market here. Even my Instagram is more like a personal one, although I share what I do and I have all the links, but it's I'm not working on it as a source of sharing my products with the potential buyers. Like, I'm bad at Instagram actually.
Yeah.
So, maybe I should change that, but I don't know how. I'm looking for some source of information, but I think that it's more about like something inside me that keeps me away from that. Because I am an introvert even on the internet. Not only.
I hear you.
Yeah. So that's it.
Okay.
And now, after I realized that I'm going to give birth to my second child, I realized that I will do like everything I could not to be back to my day job again. And right now I do not have the need to.
Right.
So I'm happy with that. Of course, I want to grow. But still, that range, I have passed it. Like what I have enough not to go back.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Now, so one of the things that I was intrigued by is, so your goals have changed now. Now you want Etsy and your e-commerce business to become your source of full-time income. When you had your baby, a lot of sellers will typically like put their shop on vacation, take some, stop taking orders for some time and then come back to it later. But because you're determined to make this full time, you didn't do that. After you had your baby, during your maternity leave, like from your regular job, you still continue to run your Etsy shop. How have you managed still running it and having a new baby at the same time?
Well, of course, that wouldn't have been possible without a great person behind me, and that's my husband.
Yeah.
So when I received this kaching, I just wrote him a message like, you take this kind of thing that so I just sent him the photo or something like that, and you pack it into this, and I give you this address, do this and this, and so he did. So he was a great support for me during that time, and after that he also started making some pieces with me.
Oh, nice.
Also, I have a personal phobia, which is soldering. Like, although I'm like 7 years into this, I'm still scared of soldering. And it was actually this week that I fought this fear and made the first soldered piece by myself.
Oh, wow.
But before everything, and that were few pieces, but sometimes I just needed that like for technical reasons, like because it would be better, soldering would work better than wiring. So I asked him, and he did that. Then he tried making some of his pieces, and actually I think half of them have sold, and some of them have been repeatedly sold. So, of course, I give him some advice because what he thinks he might do with the wire is not always working like I imagine it should be looking. Or sometimes I think it just won't sell. So I tell him, no, you have to put it here or there, or maybe I take his half ready piece and turn it into something else.
Yeah.
Happily, he's eager to learn, and he doesn't mind it a lot.
That is so fantastic that he's so supportive and is now also creating too.
Yes. So it's a family business
It's
now.
a family affair now.
Yeah.
Well, now, because your pieces, you don't sketch them out, at least some of them, and you just make them as you're creating, as it's developing, the form is taking shape. Does that mean that every item is a one of a kind? So if someone sees something right now, it might not be there again tomorrow because you probably won't make something identical to it?
Well, in some cases, of course, because sometimes I create something with the bead that is the only one I have, or maybe it has some particular shape that I don't have, or something like that. And sometimes it can be one of a kind because I created it out of something else. I was meaning to make something, and then I didn't like that result, and then I turned it into something else, and that usually makes some additional work, which I might not necessarily remember what I did. Yeah. So these pieces will sometime will sell, and actually these pieces sell quite well. They have two births, I can say, and the second one is kind of a happy one, I don't know, but they actually shape into something that people actually want, and it has happened lots of times with such pieces, but I won't repeat them. As for the regular pieces that I create without some interference, I usually remember how I make them.
Okay.
And now I take great care into remembering that, because it was my strategy before to make more one-of-a-kind pieces, but now I realize that actually I should invest more time into pieces that are repeatable and that are that can be versatile, using more variations. I have been ignoring that for quite a lot of time, but I think I did wrong. And now I'm working on changing that.
Yeah, I like that because there's a lot of wisdom to that. Selling one of a kind versus having a specific design that is repeatable, so that in some cases it might be ready to go if somebody sees that particular design and likes it, as opposed to you having to make everything every single time.
Yeah. So I still have a lot in stock.
Yeah.
And not all of them are going to be repeated.
Yeah.
To some designs I will have to say goodbye, just because it takes me more effort to repeat them than to make the original piece.
Yeah.
That I cannot charge more for them. They cost what they cost, and I do not feel easy about raising the price, but still they will mean more work for me.
Okay. Now, Anastasia, you started to talk about scaling just a little bit. I want to go back to that. What, for you, does scaling your business mean, or what will it look like? At some point, would you like to grow it large enough to where you have to hire somebody or more people to help out? Or do you just want to get it to a point where you're bringing in a certain amount of money per month, but with you just running it, and you prefer to have it just bring in a certain amount of money, but something that's still within your abilities to run as a one person, and sometimes two with your husband, one business?
Well, I think that the second variant, the second opportunity, is more for my liking.
Yeah.
And it actually the one of the reasons I started that is because I feel really comfortable working on my own, by my own.
Yeah.
And I have been like avoiding any I don't know. I do not feel ready to be responsible for someone else.
Yeah.
And it doesn't count for my husband, of course, because he has his regular job, and it's just the way for us to spend an evening together. Like otherwise, I would be sitting here alone, and he would be sitting actually like a couple of meters away, but watching TV.
Yeah.
But it's an alternative method of spending our time together.
Yes, exactly.
If I ever want to create something bigger than that, I think it won't be this kind of creation. It might be something else. Like, of course, now I understand more about how to run this. Perhaps someday some more insights will arrive. But I don't think that hiring people for this exact kind of thing is necessary.
Okay. And I like to ask that just because I know for different people, scaling your business looks different. Some people do want to grow to a point where they need to hire help. They need to bring more people in-house or outsource some work. And for some, scaling just means getting to a certain income level that's still comfortable to keep it as a one-person operation. And both are great because we have to do what's best and what we feel most comfortable with. And then you mentioned that you're an introvert. So talking about that, when you first considered opening your shop on Etsy, did you have any reservations or fears when it came to selling online? I know you mentioned that you hardly sell anything in Russia, so most of your selling is international. Was there any trepidation with running this global business when you first started? Did you even realize what you were getting into at the beginning?
Well, the person who introduced it to me is my cousin. She lives not very far away from me, but it's European Union, it's Latvia.
Yeah.
And she said that it was like back in 2010, maybe, not 11, I think. So she said that it was very popular among the makers in Latvia. But there are many knitters and people who crochet also there, and she's one of them. She's actually good at that. So actually selling online on that platform has never been something of a problem for me, except for a couple of technical things. I mean, I didn't. I had to take some time into realizing how to open the shop and how to take the payments because PayPal was not in Russia at that time.
Oh, really?
So it was a bit tricky, but there were some services. I just had to pay a certain percentage, like 10%, I lost. I gave it to them. But still it worked. So it was not the communicating part, not even like the marketing, because on Etsy, what I like about it, as an introvert, of course, like you make a suitable CEO, and then people search for something. If it's something they actually want, they will reach for you to you.
Yeah.
You don't need to reach out and say, please look at this or that.
Yeah.
Which is intimidating for me. Like asking for action, like every marketer says,
Yes.
which is actually a disastrous experience for me. So here I'm just sitting, waiting, working on my CEO from time to time, and enjoying like all the other stuff. That's why I find it enjoyable and worthwhile.
Did it take a while in the beginning to get that first sale? Or like, did you have to wait a long time, or did it come pretty soon after you launched?
To my surprise, the first sale happened in like a week.
Oh,
Yes, and
that's
that
quick.
that was quick. But after that, there was a long time of silence, like 2 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't know why it worked like that, and but still, I thought it was a good sign. I thought, okay, then that's it. I have to work on it, and I have to wait. If I have to wait, I will wait.
Yeah.
So I'm really thankful for that first customer who was not afraid to buy an item from, like, I had like 8 pieces in my shop, and he bought. I remember those earrings. They were my this design. I actually made it like porcupine earrings. They were the first design that I created, and I made them like in several colors and a bit different designs, but they were all alike, and I'm thankful for that person. It was actually a guy.
Yeah.
who bought.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I know. I'm always grateful for like the early adopters, people who come in and, you have no track record. They don't know whether, whether you're going to deliver, whether it's going to look the same, but people who just take that leap of faith and support new sellers. And for anyone who's listening right now and you're a new seller and you haven't gotten your first sale, or you got your first sale and it's been a while, there are people out there who trust the platform enough to give new sellers a chance. So don't be discouraged if you don't have your sale yet, or if you're still waiting for another sale. Sometimes it just takes time and you just have to wait it out. Now, Anastasia, one of the things you said was when you first started selling on Etsy, there was PayPal wasn't functioning in Russia yet. Now, over the years, there have been a lot of changes, particularly on Etsy, and most recently in 2018, where they introduced the new paid features on 2 different levels. Is that something that you have taken advantage of or plan to take advantage of? Or do you find that just the Etsy basic is working well for you?
Well, just to add to what they announced, like the same day Etsy announced this pay rise and also this plan, our government here in Russia, they announced a rise in retirement age, like 8 years more I have to work.
Whoa.
And yes, plus they raised VAT from 18 to 20. it was the same day or like 2 days in a row.
Great.
I was outrageous,
That was a bad week for you, huh?
it was, and they tried to hid it under the World Cup because it was like
Oh.
so. For me, I just at first I was a bit disappointed. Of course, I was, because it means more that I have to pay more to stay on track. But then I just sat down, calmed down, and realized that it doesn't change for me like anything. I will still be there because it's still comfortable enough. And it's paying off.
Yeah.
While it's paying off, I will keep it. But as for the paid, like Etsy Plus, or how it's called?
Yeah, Etsy Plus.
Yes, Etsy Plus. Today I just was decided to check it once again. Maybe that's there is something that I missed. I don't. Right now I don't see a reason for me to change what I have into what they have to offer. Actually, for $10, like it is now, perhaps I might consider that. But from January, I do not remember. Like in half a year, it will be $20.
That's right, in January, I believe.
Yes, and that's a lot considering that I pay for ads like $1 per day, and it's like 30 plus 20. That will be too much, I think. Because even now, what I pay to Etsy is never less than 10% of what I get. It's never. I think it's from 10 to 12, maybe sometimes 15. Like it depends on how many sales I have.
Yeah. And I ask because I know, some of the features might not necessarily be enough of an incentive for some sellers, but then also talking about selling internationally, one has to take into consideration that there are fees and exchange, involved, including the exchange rate. And so I don't know if most sellers are aware of that added I don't want to call it a complication, but that added factor if you're selling outside of the US. And so it's more than just a snap decision for non-US based sellers to decide whether or not it is worth it for, to, let's just call it the $20 a month, because that's where it's going to end up eventually.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about how you manage your time. What does a typical day look like for you when it comes to running your business?
Okay. I try to work like in batches, I would say. Like the first batch occurs after I say I kiss goodbye to my daughter who goes to school and my husband who goes to work, and we stay at home with the toddler. Yes, he's 2.5 now, and while he's so to say kind and busy, which is about 1 hour in the morning, so I try to do something during that period. Also, sometimes I use his sleeping time, which is during the afternoon. And of course, I'm always waiting for the evening when everyone is going to bed.
Yes.
Yes, but I think that all in all, it's 2-3 hours a day. That's the normal time for me to work. I of course I would be glad to work more, but now I do not have an opportunity to get him into the nursery school. Yeah. So he stays at home with me. I have to work with him. I have to fetch the daughter from school and do all the errands. Like, I can't arrange more than 3 hours a day, but I would be happy to.
Yeah. Do you break up your day into specific tasks? So like maybe when he's asleep, that's when you're making, but then when he's awake and you have to kind of keep an eye on him, you're doing administrative things like packing up products to ship or answering convos, etc.
Well, actually, as for the convos, I always try to answer them like the moment I get, or the moment I discover, because due to the fact that there is considerable time difference between Russia and United States, first of all.
Yeah.
Some messages I get them in the morning. So after several hours after they have been sent.
Yeah.
But for the shipping, yes, I try to do that while he's awake. Okay. And working is more like when he's watching some cartoons, so sleeping. Better sleeping. I love when the kids sleep.
Yes, the best time.
Yeah.
So now, practically all your shipments are international.
Yeah.
Did you factor that into when you were starting your shop, just knowing that for the most part you were going to be shipping internationally? And do you ever, and I don't know if this applies in Russia, do you ever offer free shipping, which is something I know that Etsy is trying to encourage sellers to do more?
Yes, as for this free shipping, I think it's a good it's a good feature. But if I make free shipping, first of all, I have a flat shipping rate. Like if you buy one, or if you buy three, or if you buy 5, whatever, you will pay the same, and that's $7.
Oh, okay.
It's a bit above what I actually have to spend on the shipping, but it's like just a tiny bit above for one item. But most of the sales, like these days, most of the orders, or maybe half of the orders, is like 2 items, or maybe sometimes 3 items. So I think that would be more fair for me not to offer this free shipping, because if I offer free shipping, that means that I have to raise my prices, like for the price of the shipping,
right? Exactly.
$7. And if you buy 2 pieces or 3 pieces, that would be additional $14.
And
I don't think that's fair. I do not think that's fair.
Yeah.
I have been considering that, and especially for the small items. Like now, I discovered dreadlock beads.
I saw those in your shop. Very nice.
Oh, yeah, and they are very enjoyable to make. Also, I'm like enjoying each curve. So they are small, and the fair price for them is this, and I have to add the shipping price, and I do not want to charge more. That's it. That's my position, at least.
And that makes perfect sense now that you say that if you do add, because that's the bottom line. If we offer free shipping, we have to work the price of the shipping into the cost of the product. And so for buyers who buy multiples, they end up paying more in shipping essentially than they would have if upfront shipping wasn't combined and you could separate them out, especially since you have flat rate shipping, which to me, $7 for an international package sounds very, very reasonable. It actually costs more, I believe, to send from the US. Well, I guess it depends on what method you use, but $7 sounds very reasonable.
Oh yeah, I think it actually is more from the United States, because I have never seen such a price. When I was browsing for some beads or other supplies. But I think that I have to be thankful to the people who buy multiple items, and in the days when I do not offer sales for multiple items in one order, I would rather avoid them paying like twice.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Now, one of the things I noticed that you put in your listings is, and you say this in your shop in the announcements, that shipping from Russia takes 2.5 to 3 weeks and even up to 1 month. Do you find that most of your customers see that and are aware of that, so you don't run into too many issues where someone is harassing you, like, where is my hairpin, or where is this thing I ordered? I have not received it.
Happily, either they read,
yeah,
or actually I have it also in the description in every item.
Yes.
At least I haven't checked each single item in my shop, but that was added, and it was added by me several years ago. This part. So of course, before the Christmas, some issues might arrive because of the workload, and I do not mean here my workload, but the postage. The post. But most of the people, they do understand that. And actually, now, when it's summer, I can see that it's sometimes even less than 2 weeks than when pieces arrive. But I'd rather not be giving false hopes.
Yeah.
Well, I feel comfortable with 2.5 to 3 weeks.
Yes.
And sometimes it's a month. I do not know how to differentiate. I do not realize what's the reason behind it.
Right.
It's I don't know what makes them arrive so long, in such a long time.
I know. Trust me. I mean, nobody knows really. And perhaps, a particular buyer lives in a more remote area. Who knows? But I agree. I would keep it just, that 2.5 to 3 weeks. So if it gets there earlier, then they're just happier that it arrived sooner. And if it doesn't, they've been forewarned. So there's not that issue. Now, you mentioned that you do Etsy ads. So I'd like to talk about how you promote your Etsy shop. Do you rely a lot on promoted listings, or did you mean like the Google Shopping ads? And is there anything else that you do to help promote your Etsy shop or drive traffic to your listings?
It's only promoted listings.
Okay.
So I think that for me, the most important thing is to arrive in the search for the items I want to arrive. There are actually not so many niches where I am very eager to be seen. I have to work on my jewelry part, because now it's a bit behind. I'm more into shawl pins, of course, and hairpins of various kinds, and I want to be seen there. They are my top priorities. So now my strategy there is that I have less items that are subject to these ads. Like I have one for hair slide, one for shawl pin, one for hairpin, and I feel quite comfortable with that. My budget is like a low one. It's only $1 per day. I might consider raising it, but before that, I have to be sure that the sales will come. Like I need to know that I will have a sale a day for sure, and then I will be eager to raise that. Now it's a bit here and there. It might be 2 sales or maybe 0 sales. I can never be sure. So $1 is okay for me.
Yeah. And did you study how to do the promoted listings, or you just kind of jumped in and are figuring out what works and what doesn't as you go along?
Yes, I'm trying a bit this and that, and I think I have read an article or two. Like I remember some seller, but of course she is a larger scale sale than me, who said that she feels most comfortable and it's most paying her off when the daily budget is $3. And I think that $3 is okay when you like have 2-3 sales a day. That's okay.
Yeah.
But maybe now that it's summer and not so many people are eager to buy, as the time goes, perhaps I will raise my budget a bit, like in the like in September or October maybe.
Okay. Now, I know we talked earlier, you said that you're on Instagram, but not that great with Instagram. I know it's taking me forever to try and figure it out. I think I understand it a lot better now than I did in the beginning. In the beginning, I was just like, I don't understand what's going on here. So I get that. You're also on Facebook. Do you have any particular strategies when it comes to Facebook? Like, do you pretty much just post new products on the Facebook page for Lirimaer Designs, which I will link to in the show notes for this episode for anyone who wants to check it out? So do you have any strategy there? Have you ever tried Facebook ads and or anything? Do you even see any traffic from Facebook to your Etsy shop?
I'm not quite sure that I can call it a strategy, because I used to be posting more there, and now it's a bit frozen there.
Yeah.
Like I do not post a lot, but still I have some traffic, and sometimes I think it's traffic from my Etsy to that page. Like today I got a message from the buyer who has received her package and who is happy with her purchase.
Yeah.
And I was very glad to hear from her.
But she sent it through Facebook?
Yes, and she decided to send it through Facebook. And I was, and she is not the first one.
Really?
Like some people before did that. And still it's a bit surprising, but very pleasant to hear from my buyers.
Yeah.
Although that platform, I'm never expecting something from Facebook. I have to I have in mind like a plan or maybe a goal. Like I need some place to actually start promoting, because the only thing which I promote now is, it's promoted listings, the only active thing. But I'm still in search of the best platform, and like it might be Facebook or maybe Instagram or maybe Pinterest, and I just need to find out more on the strategies here and there. And as for the Instagram, I think there's so much behind being popular on Instagram.
Oh,
Like
yes.
it's not only sharing like what you do and what you love and what you have around, but it's also shaping also your life up to the expectations of your followers.
Yes.
I'm afraid I will lose like not lots of time, but I'm enjoying the process of making, creating, selling, and shipping. That's what I enjoy.
Yeah.
And this interference might kind of break the magic. I don't know.
Yeah.
I really have to shape somehow my relationships with Instagram and put it into some other railway, something else from how it is now.
Yeah, I completely get. I like how you refer to it as an interference, because even though I know it's not supposed to be, I'm completely with you. I understand how, when you say you like making and you like, shipping and, basically focusing on your business, doing what really feeds you and makes you happy, what you enjoy doing, which is working on your business. But then, at the back of your mind, you need to connect socially with other people, like on social media to, help draw traffic or draw attention to your brand. And it's something that we all struggle with. I know I do. I'm so inconsistent on social media. When it comes to posting, I hear all these stats like post 3 times a day and, look at other people's feeds and comment and all whatnot. And I'm like, I would never get even just a podcast, I would never get an episode out if I did what they, say you need to do in order to be successful on social media. And so for the most part, I just let it go and, show up when I show up and then, don't when I can't. So it's a juggling act, and I'm with you on focusing on what's primary and what's bringing in the money is you making and you focusing on your shop, and the other things are peripheral, and, we can get to those later at some point.
Oh, yes. I think that's better for my emotional state to be a bit away from that. And now, although I'm not very active on Instagram, I still follow quite a lot of creatives, and among them, I discovered like a lot like long ago, the local milk, Beth Kirby. She's a photographer. I don't know whether you know her, but she's a very creative type, and her story is very captivating and dramatic. And what she does is very beautiful. Like she takes great photos and she teaches other people, and she teaches other people not only to take the photos but also to build a proper relationship with their Instagram. And she also makes a podcast, which she, I think, has recently started, because there were just several podcasts which I listened to, and I like what she says, but that's always like you build your brand, but you are not your brand, and you still have to have this proper and healthy relationship with your brand, but you should not be that, and you should not feel guilty for not being that. I really like her message, and perhaps I'm not ready to become as seen and vivid there as she is, but I like her ideas.
Now, you said it's called Local Milk?
Yes, Local Milk.
And her name is
Beth Kirby.
Beth Kirby,
and
okay.
she's based in Tennessee.
Okay.
And sometimes in Tokyo and sometimes in Paris.
Oh, she's a travel type blogger.
Yes.
Okay. So I will look up Beth Kirby and Local Milk, and I will link to
and
her...
Raw Milk podcast. It's called Raw Milk Podcast.
Okay. And Raw Milk. Actually, I have heard of the Raw Milk podcast. So I will link to the Raw Milk podcast and Beth Kirby's Local Milk website as well, just so you can go check it out. It sounds like her philosophy is very freeing. Like, it sounds like, what she believes is kind of, I don't know, I think will relieve us creative people who feel stressed about social media and running our businesses and all whatnot, and trying to do it all and stay afloat. So I will definitely link to her. So if you're listening, you can go and check her out and hopefully be encouraged and helped by what she is teaching from wherever in the world she is when you tune in. Now, Anastasia, talking about selling on Etsy, what's one thing about selling on Etsy that you really like? And then on the other side, what is something, like, if there's any feature that you would like to see Etsy implement, what would it be?
Okay. So the one thing that I adore on Etsy is that actually, although I'm not a traveler type, and that is not my personal fault or something. This is how my life goes. But I have been studying several foreign languages, and I have been traveling. When I was young, I actually visited the United States, and I stayed there for a semester. It was Ferrum College in Virginia. So after that, I quit and I got married, and I live here with having my simple Russian life. But I miss that opportunity of going out, traveling.
Yeah.
But I know that the things that I made by myself, they are traveling, and lots of them are in the United States now.
Yeah.
Lots of them are in Europe. Some are in Australia. I even sent some to Chile and Brazil and even Qatar.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Great surprise for me. At least some part of me, some part of my soul, it travels, and that's what I love a lot. As for the thing that I would love to add, I'm very thankful for the variations which they added to listings. But I would like to have some variations profiles. We have these shipping profiles. I think we need the same for variations, because it's frustrating when you are opening a new shop, you can just make something and then copy the listing and have all the variations in it, and then change something else, because making variations is a bit tricky and takes lots of time. But on the other hand, these variations, they always mean that you take either almost always it's you choose the material, or you always have one lot, not one lot, but you have a certain set of materials. You can add these variations to any listing. why not just making it more easy, an easier process?
Yeah.
I would like to have variation profiles. Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I'm willing.
Okay. That makes sense. And like I always say, I don't know if anybody from Etsy is listening to this particular episode, but every time someone makes a suggestion, I say, if you are listening, that's a good one. So consider it.
I hope they will.
Now, what's one piece of advice that you would give to somebody else who is selling internationally? I shouldn't say internationally because that's kind of self-centered because I'm here in the US. Somebody else who is selling, who is not based in the US. What advice would you give that person about something that has really worked for you? I know a lot of times the advice that we find on the internet for selling on Etsy really centers around sellers who are in the US, but there are some unique conditions and situations that non-US based sellers face. So what would you tell that other person who is not in the US that might just help them be better and run their Etsy shop a bit better?
Mm-hmm. So I think that when you create something that actually might bring good to other people, and you are capable of taking great photos and working well with CEO, like and maybe ready to invest into ads. And here I mean, first of all, promoted listings. Like you should be visible within Etsy. And for that, perhaps the best way is the right CEO and the ads, which give an additional chance for this visibility. And of course, your products should be ready to stand out. So good photos.
Yeah.
I think three pieces. These pieces are the most important for any seller, whatever, whether the seller is in the US or in any other country.
Yep.
But for me also, I try to keep my prices a bit lower. Like it's middle range, but it's lower middle range.
Okay.
I think that if I were in the US, my prices might be a bit higher, and that still wouldn't hurt. But here, due to the fact that the buyer has to wait for they actually have to get something more from it adds value, like you get it for less, but then you have to wait. It makes me more equal to the sellers that based in the US or in Canada, or even in Europe, because I think that items from Europe ship quicker. So I have to consider that.
Okay, that makes sense. Because yes, I think you do have room to, just looking at your products, I think you have lots of room to go up on the price. But now that I understand the philosophy of why you priced it where you do, or priced your products where you do, it does make sense to me that I guess in a way you're making up for the long wait by making it more affordable. Are there any resources that you use that just help you be better at selling? I know you mentioned Flickr was where you first saw the wire jewelry, and we've talked about the Raw Milk podcast and Local Milk, which I will link to all in the show notes for this episode at convome.com. But are there any other tools or resources that you find particularly helpful in just running your Etsy shop and your business in general?
Well, sure. Now that I'm especially conscious about my SEO, I have tried both Marmalade and Etsy Rank.
Yeah.
And I have listened to that episode with the Etsy Rank
Anthony
representative.
Yes.
Like twice or three
good.
times. After that, I signed up to them, like because before I discovered Marmalade, and only after it was Etsy Rank. And I think I will stick to Etsy Rank. It's more understandable, like from my point of view, and there is I think there is more information to consider on it. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I understood it.
Yeah.
Also, like Getvela, for their opportunity to take several listings and edit them at once.
Yeah.
Like adding photos or deleting photos or adding some text into the descriptions. I think that's very useful because I used to work with Betsy or how it was called.
Betsy. I believe that's what
Betsy,
it was called.
I do not know whether they function now, but some time ago I tried and it didn't work or something.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what to do. I'm very happy that I discovered Vela. As for the marketing strategies, I think first of all, seller handbook, and the emails you get from Etsy Success, they are a must. And of course, I'm very thankful to Renee Christine and for her all the work, both what she does on YouTube and on her own website. I have still lots of videos to watch and digest. But she's very productive. But some of them I'm at least taking in all this information, because you cannot be good at everything at once. And there are so many resources, and you realize that all of them are useful, but when you pick here and there and you do not have the result, like there is something to pick from and stick to.
Yeah. Thank you. That is a great list of resources. I will link to all of them. I agree with. I'm glad you mentioned that you find Etsy Rank to have more information and be easier to use, because I was going to ask, of the two, which one you find more beneficial. And Anthony, when he was on the podcast, talked about just what we talked about, the onboarding. I signed up for Etsy Rank, and when you first sign up, they will send you emails about how to do things and slowly walk you through so that you get up and running. And there's so much jam-packed into that without you even paying for the premium account, the paid account. At the free level, you're able to do so much, and it will take you a while to figure everything out and really understand all the data. So, you don't necessarily have to upgrade too quickly once you get signed up. And then Renee Christine, I have to say, also puts out some of the most educational videos. If you don't follow her on YouTube, I'm going to link to her YouTube channel so you can check her out. She also runs the Handmade Titan University, where, if you really just want to create a handmade product-based business, and again, it's for handmade. So I know there are some sellers who sell supplies and vintage, so it doesn't apply in that case. But if you're handmade, worth checking out. I will also link to that in the show notes for this episode. So thank you for sharing all those resources, Anastasia. Those are very, very helpful.
Oh, I'm very glad to share what I love. So
yes.
I hope this will help someone.
I am sure it will. Now, if someone does want to reach out and connect with you, if they have more questions, what's the best way they can get in touch with you?
I think the best way is writing an Etsy convo.
Okay, yes, that's easiest for most.
It's the quickest. Also, I'm on Instagram, and I sometimes even get logged in, like once or twice a day, maybe. Yeah. Also, there is Facebook.
Yes.
So.
Okay. And I will link to those as well. Don't worry, I'm like you with social media as well. Every once in a while, I'll pop up somewhere and be like, oh, why don't I do this more often? And then when I go out, it's like, okay, I don't show up again for a while. I will link to everywhere that you can find Anastasia. Again, her Etsy shop is Shawl Pins by Lirimaer. And that's spelled ShawlPinsByLirimaer. And I will have the link directly in the show notes for this episode. You can connect with her on Instagram at Lirimaer, and that's, at _Lirimaer. So at _Lirimaer. And I will also have the links in this episode. Thank you so much, Anastasia, for being my guest. Thank you for staying up late to talk to me. I know it's probably almost 11 p.m. your time, so I appreciate you taking the time to stay up and talk with me. I hope your son is asleep by now, and if not, I'm sorry.
Thank you so much. He is certainly asleep because
good.
I do not hear him crying.
Okay, good. And I thank you for listening to the podcast. I will be back again with another episode next time.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.